My boyfriend told everyone that I was just his roommate right before our anniversary and then cheated on me. I still remember the way he smiled at me the first time we met, how it lit up his entire face and made me feel that familiar little flutter in my stomach. We were introduced by a mutual friend at a game night, and he seemed so genuine, so open. He asked me about my favorite TV shows, made me laugh with a clever pun, and spent half the night by my side, explaining the rules of a complicated board game I'd never played before. I left that evening thinking maybe I'd found someone special. Over the course of the next few months, that feeling only grew. He was attentive, always messaging me about my day, asking how work had gone, finding small ways to make me smile. When we finally started dating, it felt so easy and so right. He'd say things like, "I've never felt this comfortable with anyone so fast," and I'd reply that I felt the same. Soon enough, we were meeting each other's friends, making weekend plans, cooking together in the evenings, and eventually moving into a shared space. Our one-year anniversary was just around the corner, 2 weeks away, and we'd been talking about how to celebrate it in a memorable way. Then it all came crashing down in one wild, confusing night. It started with a simple birthday party for a mutual friend of ours, someone we both really liked. The invitation was for a casual get-together, just a bunch of us hanging out, playing music, celebrating with drinks, and enjoying each other's company. I was excited because it was a chance to see some folks I hadn't hung out with in a while. He was excited too. He always enjoyed these social gatherings. It seemed like a perfect night out together. He got ready in his usual fashion, rummaging for a semi-casual outfit and throwing on cologne. I joked, "Someone's trying to impress people tonight," and he laughed, pulling me in for a quick kiss. I'd told him I'd stay sober because I was the designated driver, and he said something like, "Lucky me, my personal chauffeur. You're the best, babe." We shared a smile, hopped in the car, and off we went. I had no inkling of the storm about to brew. We arrived at the party, and the first hour was pure fun. I was sipping water, chatting with a couple of old friends about how life had been going, while he mingled around, happily accepting drinks and greeting everyone. The music was loud, people laughed in every corner, and the vibe was celebratory. Every so often, he'd loop an arm around my waist or catch my eye from across the room and wink. It felt cozy, affectionate, normal, a typical night out for a couple in love. At one point, I wandered off to get water from the kitchen. On my way back, there was a crush of people in the living room area, and I spotted him standing near the edge of the crowd, talking to a woman I didn't immediately recognize. I tried to navigate over to him, but people were crammed in tight. I ended up standing behind him for a minute, partially blocked by a tall guy in a baseball cap. That's when I heard her ask, "So, is that girl you came in with your girlfriend?" My heart warmed, thinking he'd proudly say, "Yeah, that's my partner," or, "Yes, that's her. She's amazing." We'd been together for almost a year after all, but instead, I heard him hesitate and then say something I never could have predicted. "No. She's just my roommate, haha." I froze. It felt like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath. His tone was casual, but I could hear the forced laugh. And in that moment, I realized he was clearly trying to present himself as single. Instantly, my emotions roiled. Shock, anger, hurt. Why on earth would he deny our relationship to a random girl? We were public. We'd moved in together. We were about to celebrate our first-year anniversary. Could the alcohol really be fueling such a monumental lapse in judgment? I pushed past the crowded bodies, feeling my jaw tighten. By the time I reached him, I overheard him saying something like, "You're so pretty," to the girl. She noticed the thunderous expression on my face before he did, and quickly excused herself, slipping away into the crowd. He turned, half smiling, expecting maybe a random partygoer or one of his buddies behind. His smile collapsed the moment he saw me. In that split second, 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Should I confront him right here? 'Cause a scene? Demand an explanation? But I also didn't want to create chaos at our friend's birthday. I was so angry, but a part of it was trying to keep my composure, not let tears or rage erupt in front of everyone. So I just said nothing, fixing him with a furious glare and turning on my heel to go find other friends. He didn't follow. Maybe he thought it was no big deal, or that I was just in a mood, or that I hadn't heard him. I spent the rest of the night talking to people I trusted, trying to keep it together. Inside, I was seethed. Part of me felt embarrassed. Like, how could I stand there smiling when my boyfriend was going around telling people we weren't together? Did everyone else at the party know? Did they believe him? At one point, the host of the party, our mutual friend, came up to me, concern etched on her face. "Hey, are you and your boyfriend okay? I just heard him telling someone he was single. Did you guys break up and I missed the memo?" That was the final name. I knew then that this wasn't some one-off slip of the tongue I'd misheard. He'd been telling multiple people he didn't have a girlfriend. So either he was playing a game to impress other girls, or there was some deeper motive I couldn't fathom. Regardless, I felt humiliated and disrespected. With no desire to speak to him at that point, and filled with anger that threatened to boil over, I decided it was best to leave. I told the host I was going home, and she offered that he could crash at her place if he was too drunk, because a few friends were already planning to stay there. She seemed sympathetic, quietly outraged on my behalf, so I walked out without even saying goodbye to him. The drive home was a blur of emotions. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Snippets of the night kept replaying in my head. Him calling me just a roommate. Him telling another girl she was pretty. Him allegedly telling someone else he was single. My cheeks burned with anger and hurt. I kept imagining confronting, hearing excuses like, I was just drunk, or I didn't realize what I was saying. But I wasn't sure if anything could justify such blatant disrespect. When I got home, I half expected him to call or text, but there was radio silence for a while. It wasn't until early morning that my phone started blowing up with calls and messages from him. They ranged from confused to accusatory. Where did you go? Why'd you leave me without a ride? What the hell happened to you last night? It was as if he was trying to flip the blame, insinuating that I was the one being shady for disappearing. Meanwhile, he was ignoring the actual issue of what he'd said. I felt fury surge again. I typed back a curt message, something along the lines of, you made it clear last night you're single. I don't give rides to ex-boyfriends. Don't bother coming back. It felt cathartic. He responded almost immediately, claiming he had no idea what I was talking about, that I was overreacting, that he'd never said anything about being single. Yet my friend, the host, had apparently confronted him that morning and told him off for being a total jerk, and he'd stuck to a story of, I have no idea what you're talking about. By then, though, the cat was out of the bag. Multiple people had heard it. I'd heard him myself. Yet he insisted everyone must have misunderstood or was lying. It was infuriating. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's someone gaslighting, trying to convince me I didn't witness what I clearly did. I told him not to come home, but he said he was getting a ride back anyway and demanded we talk in person. I sat in my living room, heart racing, unsure if I even wanted to face him. Part of me thought about ignoring the door when he arrived. Another part needed answered. My phone buzzed again. A text from a friend urging me to talk to him just to see what lame explanation he'd offer. She said something like, he's going to unleash a complete load of BS on you, but you might as well hear it so you have closure. Then dump him. She'd known him a while, and even she was astonished by his behavior. Finally, I decided to let him in. He knocked, and when I opened the door, I felt a twinge of heartbreak seeing his face. We'd built a life together in this apartment, made dinners, snuggled on the couch, hung pictures on the walls. Now it felt foreign, as though we were strangers. He looked disheveled, hair messy, eyes bloodshot. The moment he stepped inside, he tried to hug me, but I backed away. Start talking, I said quietly. He launched into immediate denial. I don't know what you think you heard, but it's not true, he insisted. I'd never claimed to be single. Why would I? He even tried to pin it on my friend, said she was jealous and had always had a crush on it. So maybe she was trying to break us up. I stood there, arms crossed, letting him dig his hole deep. Eventually, I cut him off. I heard you. I was standing right behind you when you told that girl I was your roommate. Remember that? Or do you think I'm lying? He faltered, eyes darting away. I was drunk, he finally admitted, but he still wouldn't own up to the single comment. I kept pressing, telling him multiple people heard him say the same. His face grew red, and he let out a shaky sigh. Suddenly, he tried a different tack. He dropped onto the sofa, put his head in his hands, and muttered, I'm so sorry. I messed up. Please, just let me I watched him, anger turning to a messy swirl of hurt and confusion. Why did you do it? I asked. Why would you deny we're together, especially right in front of me? He didn't answer right away. For a minute, he just sat there, rubbing his temples like he was nursing the world's biggest headache. Then he began speaking in a broken, hushed tone. Before we started dating, I'd never gotten attention from girls. Not really. I'm not the type of guy who's approached by random women. I guess I always felt insecure. Like I was lucky you ever looked at. And last night, for the first time, I had these girls talking to me, flirting with me, and it made me feel, I don't know, it went to my head. He said the words in a rut, almost as if he knew how stupid it sounded but needed to get it out. My jaw clenched. So you decided to tell them you were single just to keep the attention going? I asked, my voice trembling with disgust. He nodded miserably. I'm an idiot. It felt harmless because I knew I'd never actually do anything. I wasn't planning on cheating or leaving you. It was just a dumb, impulsive move. It's like, I liked that they were interested, that for once I wasn't invisible. I never thought you'd find out. I could hardly believe my ears. You didn't think I'd find out? I was literally at the same party, I nearly shouted. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. You made me look like a fool, and beyond that, you disrespected our relationship. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for me, hearing you say those things? He paled, stammering apologies. I'm sorry. I love you so much. I was stupid, drunk, inexperienced. It'll never happen again, I swear. But there was no taking back the betrayal I felt. 1 year of trust, affection, building a home together, and he shattered it in an evening for the sake of an ego boost. Do you realize how pathetic that is? I spat, wiping away angry tears. You apparently need random strangers' validation so badly that you'd lie about the girlfriend you claim to love. Then you expect me to just get over it? He broke down then too, tears brimming in his eyes. He grabbed my hand, though I tried to pull away. Please forgive me, he whispered, voice trembling. I'll do anything to make this right. I was so stupid. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you. How could you not realize? I demanded. If you love me, why on earth would you hide me? Why would you say, she's just my roommate, or I'm single? Why not just say, Yeah, she's my girlfriend, and she's great. That's what normal, proud partners do. He couldn't answer. He just sobbed, muttering, I'm sorry, I love you, please don't leave me. But it all felt so hollow. My fury bled into devastation. The man I'd thought was loyal had shown me he valued my feelings less than a fleeting boost from flirting girls. My mind flickered to the future. Could I ever trust him the next time he had a drink or found himself around pretty strangers? I let out a ragged breath, tears spilling over. This changes everything, I said. I can't believe you'd throw away what we had for something so trivial. Do you realize how worthless it made me feel? Like I'm not enough for you, so you need to pretend you're free to get female attention? He shook his head, stumbling over words. You are enough. You're more than enough. I never meant. I was just caught up in the moment. It was a mistake. A mistake is dropping a glass or forgetting someone's birthday, I said bitterly. You spent the whole night lying to people about being single. That's not a slip of the tongue. That's a pattern of behavior you kept up for hours. I could barely see him through my tears. Everything was a blur, yet my anger was the only thing stopping me from collapsing into a full meltdown. In desperation, he grabbed onto the edge of my shirt like a drowning man. It's not worth losing. Please don't do this. Please give me a second chance, he whispered, voice hoarse. I'll never do anything like this again. But I just felt numb. I thought about how we'd planned a special night for our first anniversary, maybe a weekend getaway, dinner at a fancy restaurant. How was I supposed to look him in the eye, celebrating a year of love and trust, when that trust lay in pieces at our feet? I gently pulled away from him. I'm sorry, I said, my tone quiet. This is a deal breaker for me. You broke my trust in the worst possible way, in front of all our friends, and then tried to lie about it. I can't look at you the same after that. He slid off the couch, down onto his knees, gripping my hands, eyes red with tears. Please, he whispered. I love you. I shook my head. Then you should have shown it. You can't claim love and then hide me or pretend I'm no one important just to feed your ego. His tears spilled freely. I'd never seen him cry like this before. Raw, desperate. It was heartbreaking. But I couldn't let that overshadow the betrayal. I need you to go, I said firmly, even though I was shaking inside. Take your things. There's a box on the porch with your basics. Get the rest when we figure out a schedule. But I need you out. He clutched at me again, repeating, I'm sorry, over and over. But I steeled my heart. I told him I no longer respected him, and that was that. Maybe it was harsh, but it was true. After that night, he seemed small to me, willing to compromise our entire relationship just for attention from strangers. Finally, he got up, tears streaming down his face. I don't want to lose you, he repeated, but it was half a whisper now, like he knew it was over. I opened the door, gestured for him to leave. He stepped out, then turned to look at me one last time, eyes full of despair. I didn't say anything, didn't wait, just closed the door quiet. The moment the latch clicked, I collapsed against the wall, shaking with sobs. Part of me hated him for doing this. Another part hated myself for caring so much. How could he throw away an entire year? A future we talked about, maybe moving to a bigger place, maybe adopting a dog. Just because some random party girls looked his way, it felt almost surreal. An hour later, I was curled up on the couch with the TV on low, tears dried to salty tracks on my cheeks, my phone buzzing nonstop with messages from him. One moment he'd be apologizing, the next saying he was bawling at home, the next blaming his drunk state, the next taking it back. I turned the phone on silent. I couldn't handle it any. My best friend came over that evening. She took one look at my swollen eyes, marched over, and gave me the biggest hug. We spent the night venting, watching some silly reality TV and ordering pizza. At one point, she shook her head and said, I can't believe he'd do that to you. He always seemed so into you. Guess he just liked the idea of having you, but also wanted attention from random girls too. I nodded wearily, knowing she was right. The next day, I woke up with a headache from crying so much, but also a strange clarity. I texted him one final time. It's over. Don't try to see me. I'll coordinate a time for you to get the rest of your stuff. I'm blocking you. And I did just that. Blocked his number. Unfriended him on social media. It felt brutal, but necessary for my own peace. He tried emailing me, saying he was at home crying, that he loves me more than life, but I didn't respond. I put all his clothes and personal items in a box and set it on the porch. He came by later when I wasn't there to pick it up, sparing us both the awkwardness of a second confrontation. Our friends were split. Some believed his story that he just got carried away while drunk and deserved a second chance. Others sided with me, saying it was a major betrayal no matter what the excuse. Ultimately, though, I had to live with it. And I knew in my heart I couldn't be happy staying with someone who could so easily discard me for a little ego boost. My best friend had recently gone through a breakup himself, so we decided on a spontaneous weekend getaway to the beach. We loaded up the car with snacks, towels, and a cooler, cranked up music, and just drove. The wind in my hair, the sun beating down, it felt like the best therapy. We splashed in the surf, took cheesy photos, laughed at inside jokes, and for brief moments, I forgot the pain. Still, it was raw. Every so often, I'd look at my phone and my heart would sink, seeing no new messages from him. Then I'd remember I'd blocked him. I'd feel a pang of regret. Should I have given him a second chance? But almost immediately, I'd recall the sound of him calling me his roommate, the betrayal in front of strangers, his pitiful excuses. My anger would flare, and that would be enough to remind me I'd done the right thing. Trust is fragile. Once broken, it's hard to piece back together. Over the next few weeks, I cried less. My hatred and bitterness slowly ebbed into a calm acceptance. I reminded myself I deserved someone who'd be proud to stand by my side. Someone who'd say, "This is my girlfriend, and she's awesome." Not just in front of me, but in front of the world. I realized that if he valued our relationship, he wouldn't have done what he did. And even if it was a moment of drunken stupidity, it revealed something about his priorities and character. I needed a partner who could handle outside interest with grace and loyalty. Occasionally, mutual acquaintances would update. He was having a rough time, telling people he'd made the worst mistake of his life, that he missed, that he was depressed. I understood that he likely was remorseful, but I also knew I couldn't fix that. He'd have to learn to live with the consequences of his own choices, just as I had to live with picking up the pieces of my heartbreak. And that's how it ended. A one-year relationship, destroyed in a single night by an ego-fueled spree of lies and flirtations. It hurt like hell, but as the days passed, I found strength in my convictions. I realized I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who'd never be ashamed or uncertain about calling me his girlfriend. Even if I got lonely sometimes or missed the way he'd smile at me in the morning, I couldn't compromise on that fundamental requirement of trust. There's a strange mix of grief and relief in the aftermath of a breakup, where the other person betrayed your trust. On one hand, you mourn the loss of love, the companionship, all the little rituals you built together. On the other, there's a freedom in knowing you won't be blindsided again, knowing you stood up for your worth. I think I cried for a straight week, but each day the tears lessened. My friend said, "A month from now, you'll see how strong you were to walk away." And he was right. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I never responded to my ex's final emails, though I heard through the grapevine he tried to apologize again. Maybe in time we'll cross paths and have a more civil conversation. But for now, my priority is taking care of rediscovering the things I love and reminding myself that someone out there will be proud to call me their partner. I made new memories, got closer to friends I'd drifted from, and even joined a weekly fitness class to channel my leftover anger into something productive. It's funny, I used to think that if we ever broke up, it would be over something big, like irreconcilable life goals or an affair, not a random party incident involving a thoughtless denial. But life can be ironic. Sometimes the straw that breaks a relationship is so bizarre and trivial. But the deeper truth is, it's not trivial if it reflects bigger issues of self-esteem, respect, and honesty. So that's the story of how my almost one-year relationship ended. If I have any advice from going through this whirlwind, it's to never ignore your gut instincts when someone shows you who they are. Words can be sweet, but actions, especially under the influence or in surprising social scenarios, can reveal truths we never suspect. I'm sad, but I'm also proud that I stood up for my dignity. A while later, that friend who hosted the party told me she was proud of me for walking away. "He tried to blame me for lying," she said, "but I was just telling you the truth so you wouldn't be in the dark. You deserve a partner who's honest and not playing single." That reassurance made me feel validated. I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't overreacting. Sometimes a single night can change everything. I'm not sure where he is now or how he's doing. Maybe he's changed, maybe not. But I know I'm better off moving forward with my life, surrounding myself with people who treat me with kindness and openness. My friend and I have turned our road trip into a recurring tradition, a way to blow off steam, soak up the sun, and share music playlists that remind us life goes on. Because it does. And in time, the pain dulls, replaced by the knowledge that we grow stronger from these lessons. Love, trust, and respect, those are non-negotiable. If someone can't offer them wholeheartedly, it's better to set them free than cling to a hollow relationship. Sure, this heartbreak might leave scars, but I know I'll be okay. Day by day, I'm learning to trust myself again, to believe in my worth, and to hold out for the kind of partner who'll never hesitate to say, "Yes, she's my girlfriend, and I'm so lucky she's mine." I deserve nothing less. And so does anyone reading this who's ever felt the sting of being denied by someone who's supposed to love. And that, in essence, is the end of our story. I walked away. He finally faced the consequences of his behavior, and though it hurt like hell, I'm proud of myself for not settling. One day, I'll look back and see this as a crucial turning point, an experience that taught me how to demand the respect I deserve. The tears, the anger, the shock, they're all part of the healing process, but each day, I move a little closer to peace. And maybe someday, when I'm with someone who can't wait to claim me as their partner, I'll smile at how far I've come, because that's what I want. A love built on truth, pride, and mutual respect. No lies, no half-truths, no drunken denial, just honesty. And that, to me, is worth 1,000 heartbreaks along the way.